Hello and welcome to State of the Economy. Today we have with us Dr. V K Saraswat, the head of DRDO and scientific advisor to Raksha Mantri, who will speak to us about his tenure at DRDO over the last 4 years, which have been rather eventful, which saw the launch of Agni 5 medium range missile system, as also introduction of a lot of other electronic weapon system which DRDO initiated and executed. Welcome to our show, Dr. Saraswat.
Thank you.
Now, let me start by asking a broad framing question. The DRDO historically had been under some criticism that it did projects, but it did them with a lot of delay, time and cost overrun. Now, for the first time in the last 4-5 years, there is a clear sign that projects are being executed much quicker, like Agni 5 start to execution was about 4-5 years. Now, is there some change in the ecosystem that has happened in the last 4-5 years? And how do you see in that context the next 5 years, since you're going to finish the term in a week's time?
Yes, DRDO of 1960s, 17 and 80s was DRDO where technology was being incubated, technology was being developed in various disciplines. And you know, DRDO had a canvas right from the beginning, starting from missiles to electronics to naval systems to even life sciences. So, when such a vast canvas was there, obviously there was time required for developing technologies, and that too in an environment where there was no industrial infrastructure, industrial support, academic interaction was also limited, and we also got into situations of missile technology control regimes, which came in the way when major programs were underway in 80s. Now, I must say that these are all things of past, and these things did contribute to the delays in DRDO programs, whether it was missile program or aeronautics program of LCA or MBT, Arjun and many other systems. But these things have changed both geopolitically as well as technologically. Industry today is much better equipped. Again, I must emphasize on
in terms of its ability to scale up.
Yeah, industry today is able to manufacture component subsystems by its association with 3 major departments of Government of India, DAE, DOS and DRDO. That has resulted in capability. Academic institutions are also in a far more manner accomplished today to take on challenging tasks of research and development, and DRDO infrastructure also has gone up considerably in terms of variety of systems.
And the public-private ecosystem is also falling in place.
And there is a good understanding after the IGMDP between the private and public industries as to how to work in a concurrent mode with DRDO to develop as well as produce systems. All this put together has resulted in Agni 5 coming in 3 years, MBT Arjun Mark II version coming in about 2.5 years, electronic warfare systems which used to take 10 years, 11 years are now getting over in about 3 to 4 years time. So, I must say that the kind of acquisition which DRDO used to face in the 60s, 70s, 80s and even 90s of time and cost to overrun would be a thing of past.
Okay.
And last 4 years we have also certainly augmented and improved our project management system, in which the participation of the user agencies, the production agencies and academic institutions in a concurrent manner has been introduced, resulting in reduction in the time required for development.
So, you can now say with certainty that given the fact that our ecosystem is falling in place and also integrating in some ways with the global ecosystem through joint ventures, interaction with the global companies. So, another 5 years, India's defense systems, sophisticated high-end defense capabilities would be as good as China's or anybody else in the world?
I would say that technologically today we have caught up,
with China.
With China. Today, technology in terms of electronic systems, missile systems, torpedo systems, and even the tank systems, even aircraft, aeronautic systems, I think we are technologically equal. Our major difference today is in our manufacturing capability. We should now ensure that we augment our manufacturing capabilities to match with that of China. I am not saying that we need to produce as many weapons and equipments as China is doing today,
But enough to suit our
but
requirements.
enough to suit our requirements, enough to suit our requirements of our armed forces, and also if required in some areas tomorrow, we may even export our systems to friendly countries.
So for this a public-private partnership, is it imperative according to you? The Indian private sector, as you said, is now building a lot of scale.
See, India has been right from the early days in the area of defense have been dominated by the public sector undertakings to take on the task of production. We have been doing licensed production for many years, which has its negative impact because that has not brought in the technology for manufacturing new systems. As a result, we have been doing the production after production under license. Now, this is changing with the indigenous products getting into the production cycle. Now, if we bring in now the private sector, which has the capability, I must say, after association with the DRDO, DOS and DA in the last about 3 decades, I am sure the production capabilities of our country can be augmented and will be comparable in terms of quality as far and the rate of production with the best in the world. But we have to create the right ecosystem, and some of the things which we generally talk that private industries should be brought in a big way, that talk should be converted into reality by bringing in the right kind of policies, right kind of trust.
Do we have a policy today, right policy?
Right kind of trust which is required for this. As far as the policies are concerned, I think recently we have made some changes in the Ministry of Defence. Our Honorable Raksha Mantri has already said that the preference will now be for indigenous buy and make.
There was a big statement that he had made.
Yeah. That will make a major difference as far as the growth of private sector in this country is concerned, because that will give them the right kind of assurance that whatever R&D effort they will invest in will be converted into production of systems which could be used by our armed forces. So, the fear of redundancy and the fear of loss of their investment will be, I would say, removed, and that will bring in more and more.
There has to be some trust. We will talk more about this, but after a small break. Please don't go away and keep watching RSTV. Welcome back to State of the Economy. We are having a conversation with Dr. V K Saraswat, the Chief of DRDO, as well as Scientific Advisor to Raksha Mantri. So, we were talking about the new thrust on indigenization, the procurement, defense procurement policy recently announced by Raksha Mantri very clearly said the highest priority to indigenization, which is the core of the policy, and to achieve that, there will be policy which will invite the private sector, which will also invite foreign companies, because you've been saying that global companies would be equally stakeholders in our development of defense systems, because that's how you can close the technology gap in some critical areas. So, how do you see this panning out in the next 5-6 years?
The policy decision which our Honorable Raksha Mantri took, associated with our input which is coming in the form of offset policy, I think these two will play a major role in expanding our production capability in the years to come. If you go by the experience of other nations, the offset policies have really brought in technologies in different nations. Japan has more than 300% offset in all whatever they do with any country today.
You studied the Japanese system.
Right? And as a result, you see the way the technology has developed in Japan. Same is the case with many other countries. Our offset, minimum offset over 300 kilometer cost product is about 30%. I think slowly this will go up from 30% to higher values. But most important thing is our offset management system. That has to be really revamped to ensure that the leveraging capability which we have while negotiating the offset should be exploited to the maximum.
To the full.
If we do not exploit that, then we will get third-rate offset capability, which will not upgrade our industrial infrastructure. If we don't do that, our industry will remain only a component producing sector, and it will not become a technology producing sector. This will require two major changes. One change would be that we should have offset negotiations upfront. While we are asking equipment to be purchased, I think we should say that we should also negotiate the offset at the time of acquisition rather than after signing the contract. This will give you a major handle to get the best what you want for the country.
So you get a package deal at the beginning.
At the beginning, rather than haggling with the foreign suppliers at the end when the negotiations are already over and your bargaining capability is reduced to very, very low. I'll give you an example. In one of the offsets, we were trying to get as DRDO beneficiary, we were trying to get a wind tunnel. Okay. Now recently we have been asked that this wind tunnel should not be used for testing missiles and aircrafts. If I don't use the wind tunnel for testing missiles and aircrafts models, then what for the wind tunnel is there? I'm not doing wind tunnel wind turbines alone for the civil sector. Obviously this offset is for the defense. Okay. So if you do not have this capability to bargain when we sign the contract for acquisition of the aircraft, then we'll lose the impact of offset in the years to come.
How do the Chinese do offsets? Have you studied the Chinese
I've
system?
not studied, but most of the countries, when they talk of offset, offset becomes the primary derivative or the primary denominator when the acquisition process is discussed. And we should continue to change ourselves in that direction. Second thing is, offset also brings sometimes joint ventures. Yeah, sure. And joint ventures with limited investment will not be the answer. We have to look at offsets with higher investment, with joint ventures with higher investment. In defense, we have 26%. I'm not saying that we should switch over to 74%, which exists in the commercial sector, but certainly to bring in a better motivation for the foreign countries to bring in technology to our country, the offset level should go from present 26% to at least 45, 47, 48%.
You mean the partnership?
The partnership stakeholding should be reasonably high.
It could be 50-50?
No, I think the control has to be with the Indian industry, with the Indian government, but the investment should be almost at par. You take the case of BrahMos. We are 50.5 and the Russians are 49.5.
So that's
the model which has worked so well today. BrahMos is a success story in which we have developed a good missile called BrahMos, which is now for all three armed forces, and it is under production in India and as well as production in Russia.
So you're saying that BrahMos is a good model to follow?
It's a good model to follow when we talk of joint ventures in defense.
And so, are you satisfied with the offset policy as it exists today?
I think we have gone quite a lot as far as improvement of our offset policy is concerned. What it started with and what we are today, I think we are much better, but much more can be done. We should learn, we should set up a very, very strong system of managing the offsets. And that management of the offset alone will ensure that private, public industries, R&D institutions, they got enmeshed with the offset discussions, and we get the best out of it. For example, India has got technology gaps today. Yeah. Now, many areas we have technology gaps.
Like in the area of computing.
Yeah,
our computing is not up to
absolutely. In the area of semiconductors, in the area of microelectronics, we have missed the revolution for various reasons. Today, our capability to manufacture processors, devices is very, very abysmal.
But why here I want to ask you, why has India missed this bus? With all our capabilities, we have such great IT companies. Why did nobody go into hardware, or why did no public sector also go into producing hardware?
See, it became a catch, I would say, the egg and the chicken story. Number one, the basic R&D which is required for doing the microelectronics or the transistors or the ICs later, and now the MMICs and other devices, the R&D effort in India was lacking, number one. When it comes down to importing this technology in the form of foundries, we realized that the return on investment is going to be very, very poor. The investment was of the order of millions of dollars in those days. I'm talking of 70s and 80s, which India could not afford. And as a result, we did not set up those foundries. But when we realized that yes, it is inevitable if we have to survive in this today's world of electronics, the cost of these foundries have become very, very high. Now the impact of this has been felt not only in our non-availability of these systems for a strategic sector, which we are denied most of the time, but its impact on cyber security. Because today, because we import all our electronics, whether it is for the defense or it is for commercial economics or communication or networks or internet or IT,
and Chinese are leaders in
and Chinese have taken all the technologies from US and other places and manufacturing these systems and supplying to us. So the vulnerability has increased. Now when we have realized that we are vulnerable, now the government of India has taken a decision to set up a good foundry. I think the Department of Information Technology is already at it, and I'm sure that in the years to come we will have at least a good state-of-the-art foundry which will meet our requirements.
So there's hope on that count.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll take a small break here. Please don't go away and keep watching RSTV. Welcome back to State of the Economy. We are having a conversation with Dr. V K Saraswat, the head of DRDO, as well as scientific advisor to Raksha Mantri. Mr. Saraswat, recently the Commerce Minister also wrote to Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, pointing to the urgency of building exactly what you were saying as part of the ecosystem, scaling up India's production capabilities, manufacturing capabilities with public and private sector working together, which you also spoken of. Now, we have a policy in place. I want your frank views on what are the problems. Sometimes I get the feeling that there is a trust issue. The public's at one level between the public sector company and the private sector, there is a certain trust deficit. As well as between Indian companies and foreign companies, there seems to be some, or between the government and foreign companies, in terms of intentions, there's a trust deficit. How do you fill that?
I think slowly this knowledge is coming in at various levels. We realize that when we place orders for import of items from foreign countries, whether it is Russia or America or Germany or France or Israel, most of this equipment is manufactured by private countries, private companies in that countries.
Okay.
So when we see that if we can trust those private companies to give you the right equipment of right quality at the right price, then what is wrong with the Indian industry? So this I think wisdom is now dawning in. As a result, whatever this trust deficit that the private companies will kind of corrupt the system, I think is going away. It is happening. Second thing is, we have also realized that development requires a different approach for partnership. Acquisition of commercial grade items, whether it is cotton waste or raw materials or some small the food items and all that, through a competitive process which the government of India follows, and we go by L1 syndrome everywhere, may not be suitable for the development process, because development is related to your capability and cost both. Capability is in terms of technology. So unless we have not L1, we have L1 and T1 combination as the denominator for selecting our partners, this deficit of trust will continue. If you go by L1, then there is a likelihood that you will not be able to get the right technology, right product, because technology deficit exists.
It can be self-defeating.
It will be self-defeating.
Like you said, a bad offset is
not useful at all. So same thing in the case of selecting the development partners. And development partners is the one which will give you technology. merely having manufacturing partners does not give technology. This I have mentioned to you happened in the case of public sectors. They kept on manufacturing licensed production items and did not bring any technology.
They didn't reverse engineer enough.
Neither the reverse engineer nor they got the know-why to develop new systems, which is the nemesis today for this gap. If you have a L1 T1 approach for selecting your development partners and production partners later, then I am sure this trust deficit will vanish. Government of India has to evolve and accept that L1 T1 mechanism has to be put in place for getting the best development partners from private industry, even foreign partners for that matter. If we are selecting, they should not be purely on the basis of L1. They should be on the basis of what you are getting out of it. And that will ensure that we get the best what the country needs for accelerating the filling up of the technology gap which exists between developed nations and India today.
So there's I completely agree with you. There's a subjective element there when you say that this is good for India, this technology. So a combination of this and L1 should be considered. Now, who will decide that? Do you think the Ramarao Committee, some of the recommendations that Ramarao Committee has made can help in achieving some of these objectives that you're talking about?
Ramarao Committee did not delve on these issues. Ramarao Committee was basically for re-engineering DRDO for better efficiency. Okay. So, in which we did not discuss about how to do what is called collaboration with the private industry and T1.
No, but
yes, Kelkar Committee did have emphasis on many of the issues which I mentioned. If you read the Kelkar Committee report, it very clearly brings out.
That was on public-private partnership.
On public-private partnership and L1 T1 as one of the underlying parameters for improving our development capability and also reducing the trust deficit.
Okay. In the context of Ramarao Committee, it suggests that there should be a Defense Technology Commission,
yes,
an apex body. If a commission like that takes a call on what is the optimal technology and price combination that India should follow in certain area, will it work?
Defense Technology Commission is a very good concept which Ramarao Committee has promulgated. Defense Technology Commission is almost on the same lines on which today the Space Commission and the Atomic Energy Commission exist.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the Ramarao Committee did not mention about the structure in detail.
Yeah, somebody can flesh out the structure, right?
Now that structure we are trying to flesh out. Yeah. We are of the opinion that a Ramarao Committee, the Defense Technology Commission has to be an empowered body.
Yeah.
Because the basic objective of the DTC promulgated by Ramarao Committee is to achieve the highest level of self-reliance in defense technology in the country.
Yeah.
And that self-reliance has got a direct clash with the acquisition requirements of the armed forces. Okay. So unless that is addressed at appropriately high level with all stakeholders participating in this, we will not be able to achieve the so-called objective of self-reliance. This was the idea of DTC.
So that's something. Can DTC bring together all the stakeholders and bring trust?
Absolutely. That is what the DTC constitution is today. Chaired by Honorable Raksha Mantri. Then we have the 3 service chiefs. Yeah. We have the principal National Security Advisor as member. Industry partners as members. The finance in terms of expenditure secretary as the member. And of course R&D being represented by the Secretary Defense R&D, and eminent industrialist nominated by the government onto the board. If these wise men can take decisions on what should be done to promote self-reliance and not only advise but also monitor in terms of decisions which are taken at appropriate levels in terms of funding, manpower, upgradation of infrastructure, bringing in private sector at what level, investing in major portfolios. For example, we talked of a foundry. Now suppose we had DTC giving a recommendation about 10 years back, probably we'll have a great foundry working in India today, and I will not have the problem of processor not being available for my missile program. So DTC is a very good instrument which has been promulgated by Ram Rao Committee. I'm sure that in the years to come,
it needs to be fleshed out.
Successors and the government would take the right decisions to give the right shape to the DTC. DTC, for the sake of merely a body which does not have powers, which does not have the necessary teeth, I thought will be a useless device. It should be empowered, it should have the necessary teeth, and its decisions should be binding on all stakeholders.
Thank you, Dr. Saraswat, for talking to us, hoping that the trust deficit that you spoke of in the next few years will be, the gap will be closed. That's all we have in this edition of State of the Economy. We'll be back again with another episode. Thanks for watching.